Welcome to New York. My name is Paul Harrison. I'm with the Ford Communications team in Dearborn. And what we wanted to do today was to have a conversation with two of arguably the most influential men in marketing globally today.
Well, in the case of one, very arguably.
One very arguably.
Him, but the other one, I'm not so sure.
Okay. Well, they generally, basically, they need no introduction, but I will introduce them anyway. So I'll say please welcome to Jim Farley, who is Ford's Group Vice President of Global Marketing, Sales and Service, and of course the CEO of WPP Group, Sir Martin Sorrell. Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
Welcome.
Morning.
Let's start with the new Ford Focus, Jim. That's why we're here today, to talk about the new Focus. Why is the new Focus so important as a global product for Ford?
Well, probably two main reasons. The first is 1 out of 4 new vehicles bought around the world is a Focus-sized vehicle. It is the #1 biggest segment in the world. And the second reason is because this is the first true One Ford vehicle for the company. Alan's vision to bring all of the company together and execute a product that is the highest common denominator. Because we tried world cars before, but never with this approach of having the highest common denominator around the world. I think that's the main reason why this is so important to us.
A single product, but Sir Martin, it hasn't always been like that, either from a single product perspective or from a One Ford or even a single team perspective. What was it like before?
Well, in the old days, which would only be as 3 or 4 years ago, what we did was we had a multiple agency relationship. We had a number of brands, J. Walter Thompson as it was then known, Y&R, Ogilvy, Wunderman, MEC, Mindshare, in the media area, and others working separately in a siloed way for Ford Motor Company. So it was a very different model. It was therefore very disintegrated, disaggregated. I do think the key issue, and from our point of view, is that you have to have a client with a strong vision, and that's easy to talk about, but difficult to do, with a strong will to implement it. You have to have a strong CEO who has that vision and wants to implement it, and a strong CMO, Chief Marketing Officer, who shares that vision and implements it and aligns the organization with a strong team to get it done. We have 140,000 people around the world inside WPP in one way, shape or form. It's about getting those people to work together in a more coherent and more effective way to the benefit of clients like Ford, in terms of producing better work, which is more efficiently and more effectively done. Not reinventing the wheel in different parts of the world, but getting people to implement. And I think we've got a reel, haven't we?
Yeah, just
work that shows what life used to be like.
Exactly.
In that disaggregated world.
Rise and shine! I need to be driven! 我的精彩，我的自由。
Yeah. Are you ready, Boots?
So happy together.
For the love of figure eights, because I need to get on the road ASAP.
So Jim, a lot of different campaigns, a lot of different messages around the world.
That's a lot.
Yeah. So what changed? What preempted the introduction of One Ford? How did we move on?
Well, I think the first most important thing to understand is that we hope to sell, and we already have a scale of 1 million units for Focus. I mean, this is a really, really important car, and the platform is going to be more than 2 million units. What changes when we looked at the essence of the product, what Derek and the product development team came up with, and their vision for the brand, it became painfully obvious, especially when we started talking to the customer and doing the customer insight work, that we had to present the product with technology as the main message. And when we started to do the work around, especially in China and Western Europe and the US, it became very clear that the technology message is very universal. more than we ever thought. And because it was the essence of what made our product different, along with a lot of other things, we really had to take a different approach. Because the other thing about the car is the premiumness. One of the things that executing to the highest standard around the world is that the design said premiumness. And I knew as a marketer we had to get that across when people saw the car visually. Turn the sound off. That's what they needed to say. And that's one of the reasons why, just like the car was developed with the European team, the European WPP team took the lead in the visual aspects of the launch. And when we looked at the visual and the technology story, we knew pretty clearly, and we started 2 years ago, we don't need a different approach. And I was surprised, but the team came up with one campaign.
The changing of the global business model for Ford had a pretty dramatic effect then on the business model for you in terms of...
Well, one of the things that some of our clients might disagree with this, but one of the things I think our people do is that they do listen. And when you listen, you learn a bit. And what we saw happening at Ford was what I referred to earlier. If you think about the great transformations or the great turnarounds, and to be frank, the position that Ford faced 3 or 4 years ago was not exactly a pretty one, to put it mildly. It was an extremely difficult one. And you could liken it to when Lou Gerstner came to IBM, what was it, 1992, if I remember rightly. And in a sense, did not a dissimilar thing. Clear vision, one IBM. You remember that people said, break IBM apart. What he did was not go that way. He pulled it together. I think Ford is a very similar story. And the biggest challenge I think chairmen and CEOs have, and indeed CMOs have, is getting people to face, and certainly I see this at WPP, is getting people to face in the same direction at the same point in time. If you have 140,000 people like we have, that's forgive the military analogy, but it's a fairly powerful army. And what we saw at Ford, clear vision, strong CEO, strong CMO. It was one Ford, very much one Ford. We had to design a structure that was designed to respond to that one Ford. What we've done is create a Ford agency inside WPP. My view that this, and this is not a popular view amongst many people, that this is the way our industry is going to go. This is the way that clients will get better work, not cheaper work. The cheap shot is that it's cheaper. More effective work, better work, access to more resources. To say that it'll all become bland, the lowest common denominator. We're going for the highest common multiple here. We're trying to get our best people to work on this business in the most effective and efficient way. That's what it's about.
And focus was the catalyst for this. Let's
Yes.
come back to focus as the car is the star. Why did we need an approach like this for focus? What's so important about the segment, the vehicle itself, in terms of its technologies and what we were trying to deliver to customers?
The biggest enabler was our bet that traditional small car buyers would embrace technology. And when you look at the Focus and what makes it different compared to all the other vehicles I mentioned, it's a Wi-Fi hotspot. It can park itself. It has a blind spot monitor, direct injection, twin turbocharged EcoBoost engine, and it has a 6-speed dual clutch power shift transmission. It has start-stop and sync, and we're launching sync in Europe with this car. My Ford Touch, active grille shutters. I mean, there are so many fundamental technologies that you have to buy in a car that's 3 or 4, not just the next level up, a segment up, but 3 or 4 times the price. When we looked at that, frankly, we all said that's the #1 thing we have to get across. So the product's bet itself, Derek and the product development team from Europe's idea behind the product was so fundamental in terms of Smart Pillar that dominated our launch approach, i.e. technology had to be the thing that we sold, the one message that we needed to get across.
There were a couple of very interesting pre-launch campaigns for Focus.
Yes.
Talk us through those.
Well, the most important one to me, is the global test drive, which we just finished actually last weekend in Madrid. And for those of you who don't know what we did, in November, December, actually starting in Paris, we asked socially connected people, about 20 bloggers, and the rest, about 30 people with guests, so about 60 people. We allowed people to submit videos on Facebook, Twitter, to apply to go to this global test drive. They came to a test track in Madrid. We had their vehicles there, and we had some celebrities, Tanner Faust and Justin Bell, and they got to drive the vehicle before anyone. And we then, obviously, they produced content from this venue, and we're going to give them a focus for 6 months, plus we gave them $10,000 for the favorite charity. And some of these people, like Justine, has over 1 million connections in her blog. They drove the car and they spread their content everywhere. We have 11 million digital impressions already in 6 days. It's really shocking, frankly, to me to see how much the content has gone out already.
What are the days of the big
shock and awe campaigns?
Shock and awe campaigns, are they
and
over?
thematic campaign. Well, clearly not, because you see other people doing it. So it hasn't. And in fact, interestingly, traditional media, certainly last year, came back. We thought maybe it was a bit of dead cat bounce, as some people in the room will be aware of, given what we went through in 2009. But no, generally, I think given the change in consumer media consumption habits, and thematic campaigns may not be. Some cases they may be, and we've seen that in some competitive instances that we're aware of in this industry, in the automotive industry. But it may not be. It's certainly not appropriate, I think, at the stage which Ford is at, or the objectives that Jim has laid out. So we've not embraced that. We've embraced shorter commercials, 15-second commercials, which in our research clearly shows they're not less effective, maybe a smidgen less effective than, say, 30-second or 60-second spots, but we can show them with greater frequency, and therefore the effectiveness, the reach is heightened to a very significant degree.
Let's talk about the commercials themselves, Jim. We're going to show some in just a second. The real interesting thing for me here was, that if I was talking to an engineer in Derek Kuzak's team and I asked him about some of these technologies, it would take him quite a long time to talk me through it. And we have this challenge to try and deliver in 15 or 20 seconds. Yeah. And I think there's some very interesting examples. We've chosen 4 today that we're going to show. The first one, Jim, can you explain to us, what is an active grille shutter? What does it do?
Well, it's not necessarily something that a customer of a Focus would care about, but the reason why we highlight it in the film is because it's a point of evidence of our fuel economy leadership. The C segment, one of the reasons why people buy these vehicles is it is ground zero for fuel efficiency. And so active grille shutter is simply, think of a Venetian blind in front of the radiator with a very sophisticated computer control of a motor that infinitely varies these vanes that control the airflow into the engine compartment. And the advantage is when you don't need the cooling, they shut off the airflow and the car becomes much more aerodynamic, and the fuel savings are really meaningful.
Let's take a look.
To save fuel, it makes itself more aerodynamic by automatically closing its grille vents, leaving you breathless. The all-new Ford Focus with active grille shutters.
Quick and simple.
Yep.
But gets the message
Point.
across.
That's the point.
Active park assist. What is active park assist?
Well, I think it's for every important launch, as a marketing person, you want a killer spec. I think this is a killer spec. It's a system that parks the Focus by itself. So basically, it will help you find an open space, parking space, and when you find it, it uses a sonar system. So a lot of the luxury car that have this, they're over $100,000, and they use cameras. The cameras can get blocked with snow or mud. In this case, we use sonar. And basically, the car, you just operate the brake, and the car parks itself.
It might be hard to believe that the new Focus can actually park itself. Till you actually see it. Park itself. The all-new Focus with class-exclusive active park assist.
Aerodynamics. A lot of talk about aerodynamics over the years, what it means, but why should the customer care about aerodynamics?
One of the most important differentiators for Focus, especially the 5-door, is it just looks beautiful. And we needed a spot, a commercial, that highlights the beauty, but we didn't want to be just superficial. We wanted to talk about its very aerodynamic shape at the same time.
To increase fuel efficiency, its profile is sculpted for optimal aerodynamics. It's wind-resistant in an irresistible sort of way. The all-new Ford Focus.
Again, a very simple message in a way, but very easy to understand. One that's perhaps a little bit more complex, and particularly for, as you say, this technology will be available on the diesels in Europe,
yes,
is start-stop.
Yes.
What is it and why do we need it?
Well, again, I think, you know, we've only talked about 3. We're talking about the 4th. We have 14 of these with 50 variations, you know, with different body styles and different languages. But start-stop is a really interesting mainstream technology. The vehicle, when it comes to a stop, the engine shuts down. And as soon as the customer takes their foot off the brake, the engine starts again. It requires some exclusive components, a different kind of battery, a high-capacity starter because it cycles so often, and a new electrical system because when the engine's not running, air conditioning and all the electronics of the car are still running. And it is a very dramatic experience because when the engine shuts down, it feels like an electric car. And we thought it was very important for the European customers to highlight this new technology on a C-car.
And I should point out that the ads we've seen so far, we've shown you a variety of voiceovers depending on the market that they're going to be shown in. This one in particular, because it's for Europe, we're going to show it to you with the German voiceover.
Um Benzin zu sparen, schaltet er im Leerlauf den Motor ab. Und startet ihn wieder, wenn Sie weiterfahren möchten. Wie erfrischend, ein Auto, das Benzin sparen möchte, genau wie Sie. Der neue Focus mit Start-Stopp-System.
When do we go live with the Focus ad here in America?
We start next Tuesday on American Idol.
Yeah.
And the vehicles are any day now. We'll be rolling out of Wayne. The production's already begun in Europe, and the ads will start in the beginning of March. Of course, that's a traditional TV ads, but we've had the digital and the social already launched for a while. And then we launch in the tri-nations in Asia of Australia, New Zealand, and South Africa later this year. And then we're going to go to China and South America in 2012. So again, this is 1 million units a year for us, and it's the same vehicle in all those places. But we start basically in a few days here in Western Europe and the US, and then...
But just to underline, it's been in train for some time.
For some time, yeah.
That's right.
Jim, Sir Martin,
Thank you very much.
much.
Thank you.